This episode of the QA is brought to you by Lucky Shot. It is the end of the month, which means it is time for the QA, and this is actually the last QA of the year. This is the 2020 finale QA. Happy New Year to all of you. I hope your holidays went great. And before we get into the questions, I do sincerely want to say thank you. And I also want to apologize. We usually publish these on Mondays. I was actually out of town doing a training thing, so I'm back in town a little late. So when you're watching this, it's probably middle of the week, but it is still the end of the month, which means it's QA time. Now, before we get into that, let me get real for a sec. I do, again, want to thank you, the loyal watchers of the QA. Again, you guys are like my inner circle, I feel like. And I absolutely love interacting with you, seeing people, check in and comment, and it's absolutely amazing. So I do love the following and you guys and interacting, and I really, really enjoy making these because I feel like we have more of a connection, if you will. So that's pretty cool. The comments on the last one were awesome. I do appreciate the feedback on the background. I'm not going to worry about it right now, as I've kind of got some other projects that I need to get done personally as well as video wise, but I'm going to get there. Maybe someday I'll have kind of multi-lighting, scenes or whatever, where hopefully someday I can just push a button on the iPad and like the smart lights just do their thing. But right now I don't quite have the budget for that, but I'm, looking into it. I always want to try to make things look good because the host, I've been told I have a face for radio. That's what my mom used to tell me, but yet here I am in front of a camera. So anyways, the comments about my special guest last month were pretty awesome too. I do appreciate that. And I also do appreciate some of the comments where you guys have noticed my weight loss. I do appreciate it. I don't talk about it a lot on camera. I think I've mentioned it in maybe a QA or two as the comments have come up. But it's a struggle, it's a journey, and those of you guys that have watched videos from way back when on the old Learning Firearms channel, or even before that, if you're original, like old schoolers, and you watched Patrol Tactical, which I don't even think we have maybe just one video on there left, but we moved everything over. But for those of you guys that watched way back when, know that obviously I was a lot bigger, but it's a struggle. I try. Well, the pandemic sucks, holidays are hard, and I do want to, dip back down a little bit. I've put on some pandemic pounds, and then having a treat like this, is okay here and there, but just don't overdo it. At least that's what I tell myself. Speaking of which, I do have to give a shout out right away to Bob. Bob, thank you. That was pretty awesome. And I sent Bob a specialized video note, and that was pretty cool. I'm not a cool guy YouTube channel. I'm not like one of the big stars that gets all this stuff or whatever. So Bob, this was probably like one of the very first pieces of fan mail I've ever got, and I appreciate it. And Bob sent me some refreshing pineapple Fanta, which those of you guys that know, well, enough said. Would it be a shameless plug if I said it tastes better out of a Lucky Shot glassware? Probably, but they are the sponsor of this month's episode. They do send out a prize, which, speaking of which, if you want to get your question on the show, the best way to do that is to send an email to the email address shown below. That is theqa@gunsandtactics.com. So please send your questions in. If you do leave a comment, I try to get to as many comments as I can, but sometimes I might miss one, so the best thing is to email me. My name is Dave Tim from Guns and Tactics. Thank you guys very much for spending a few minutes with me checking out this episode of the QA. That being said, last month we had 14. This month we also have 14, including a YouTube comment, so we're just like bam, breaking records or keeping up with records. So I might not be able to get to all of these in super detail because this video would be like forever. However, I do want to try to address all of them, and some of them might be worthy of, referencing a previous video or talking about maybe things in a new video, that kind of thing. So that being said, let's get right to it. First one is from Derek. Love the channel, one of my faves. Have a couple questions. What should you have on a rifle? What should you not? Question 2, any tips to work with an eye? Stickerism. I think you meant astigmatism. Gotta love autocorrect, right? P.S. Keep doing a good job on the channel. Your biggest fan. Man, I've never had anybody call themselves a biggest fan. Derek, I'm not that cool. I should not have biggest fans, okay? But I do appreciate it, man. I really, really do. First things first, I did a rifle setup video, 2020 edition. I'll put a link right up there. And that kind of goes over what you should and should not have on a rifle. Basically, in short, 3 things that you should have on every single rifle is a sling, a white light, and some sort of quality optical sight system. those three things are kind of for me an all or nothing. If it doesn't have all three of those things, I wouldn't consider it like home defense, patrol, end of the world, whatever you want to call it, ready. Likewise, if it does have those three things in their quality, you know, it should be good to go. Now, good quality sling, white light to identify friend from foe, and good quality aiming sight system. Then from there, you can also look at enhanced things that we talked about in either our winterization video, which I'll put another link up there, or we talked about having kind of like extended controls, winter trigger guards, things like that. All nice stuff to have. As far as what you should not have, I would just say, don't make it too heavy, because ounces equal pounds, pounds equals pain is the old saying. But the reality is, if you have a rifle that's too heavy, you're not going to want to carry it with you. If you're doing training, it's going to be more hard on, you know, going to classes, stuff like that. And there's just some things that you just don't need to put like every single whiz-bang gadget on there. So kind of keep it slick, think about what is realistic for you, and run from that, you know, if you can. So that's great. And as far as the eye stigmatism, some people report issues with dots, and they'll see like a cluster of grapes or like a weird comma thing or like a bloom or whatever. I would maybe check out a LPVO or a low power variable optic. And I'm going to be doing like a state of the LPVO video in 2021, where I'm kind of gathering what current LPVOs are out there and kind of going over pros and cons and what my favorites are, which the results may surprise you a little bit. Those that have been through classes or shot with me or whatever know that I still have a sweetheart in the LPVO world, and it's not one that you'd probably think, because it's not like the cool guy LPVO, but I can argue that it's arguably one of the better LPVOs. Trijicon 1-4. Anyways, yeah, so I would maybe check out an LPVO, since it has more of a reticle, and that might work better for you with astigmatism. I've had a lot of shooters give me that feedback, and you can check out different colors and stuff like that. Ladies and gentlemen, this one is from literally Minnesota's Precision Power couple. I'm kind of humbled that they submitted a question, and I'm absolutely kind of blown away that they watch. This is really cool. So Ruth and Justin, two of the most nicest, amazing people I have met in the shooting sports. They run one heck of a series and group just promoting precision rifle shooting in Minnesota in the Midwest area. I'm going to put a link in the description to their Facebook group and pages and stuff. But they put on the NRL 22 Extreme match that I did a video on. I believe yeah, I'll put a link up there again for that. But awesome, awesome people, super nice, genuinely awesome people, help out anybody get into the shooting sports. So they submitted a question. So thank you to you guys. That really means a lot to me that you guys watch. Dave, you're obviously very knowledgeable about many varieties of guns and shootings. Thank you. I appreciate that compliment. What is your favorite type of shooting and why? And your boy is adorable. I request he be in future videos. You know what? Hopefully I'm going to bring him to some matches here in a little bit too, so you get to see him. But he's a little rambunctious. My favorite shooting right now is like precision rifle stuff, precision rifle 22 in particular, just because it is a lot of fun and it's a new challenge for me. I like to explore new things and do things that I'm not as good at to try to expand my skills. And for me, long range precision rifle, in about that 2019 when I did my first match, I wanted to get more into that sport, and I love it. It's addicting, it's a challenge, it's a real focus on the marksmanship and the fundamentals, and then 22 is even just a more, you know, fine aspect of that. You know, like you think, oh, shooting a 22. Well, you're shooting a 22 at 200, 300, 400 yards. That's a heck of a challenge, and the wind and the positional shooting, like everything, and it is just a lot of fun. It's absolutely a lot of fun. So right now, that's my favorite. I still love pistol and rifle shooting. I enjoyed three-gun shooting, but three-gun shooting, you know, it got to be, at the time when I was kind of getting out of it, it got to be a race on who could reload the shotgun the quickest, who could do certain skills the quickest, versus the overall how well you could shoot all three guns. So for example, like in three-gun, if there was a heavy pistol stage, I would do really well at that stage because I felt like I was a strong pistol shooter. Whereas if there was a heavy shotgun stage or whatever, I wouldn't do as well because I didn't have that quad loading thing figured out as well as some of the others. So, but anyways, I like all of it. I can learn from all of it. But yeah, two-gun, pistol, rifle, precision rifle, that's all kind of my favorite. So great question. All right, number 3, this is kind of a long one. And I apologize because it sounds like I missed it in one of the previous months. So I do apologize for that. Mike from St. Louis. When torquing the barrel, instead of getting the proper vice blocks, he would clamp it in his vice. Turns out he was wrong and he managed to tweak the upper, and now there's a slight bend in the thin area just below the dust cover. He sent me a couple of photos as well. Is there a way to fix this? No, unfortunately not. Once you've tweaked that upper receiver, it's bent, and it's not elastic in a way where it'll kind of come back, and it will have a memory. I believe that's the correct term with metal. If there's damage, you could try to tweak it back, but the reality is it's going to have a memory of that damage, and it's probably not going to return back. And plus the tolerances, we're talking a few thousandths of an inch is what the tolerances should be for the bore of the upper receiver. And I believe it's plus or minus 3 thousandths. I don't have a print in front of me, but the fact that you're probably not going to get that by bending it back is realistic. So at this point, yeah, you're going to need to look at a new upper receiver. And right now, parts are super tough to find. I get that, so it's a crappy part for that. You could try reaching out to Arrow and just say, hey, I screwed up. I messed up, take responsibility, own it, and see if they'd be willing to give you a deal or help you with availability or anything like that. So that's a great lesson learned, and hopefully, others can learn from using the proper tools or seeking others with proper tools advice. I know there's a lot of people out there in the community that are willing to help out, that have the knowledge and the tools. So yeah, it's a tough shake, man. It's a tough shake. So sorry I missed your question before. This one is from Thomas, excuse me. I have a suppressor for my AR, and you might be able to relate, but the gas blowing into my face is really annoying. What can I do? Yes, so a couple things. I did have a do-it-yourself gas buster charging handle. I'll put a link up there. If not, if I'm running out of links up there, check the description for all the links that we're talking about. But basically, we're making a little bead of silicone or RTV silicone that kind of helps seal that rear area to prevent that. Other things that you could do is you could look at an adjustable gas block to reduce the amount of gas. You could look at adding a little bit more weight in the buffer to keep that bolt locked a little bit longer before it unlocks. JP makes a system with heavier weights carriers. That's going to be much more expensive. So those are some options there. Either reduce the gas, increase a little bit of the mass to keep that bolt locked so more of the gas can escape, or that gas buster charging handle will help. Actually, one of the videos I have coming up for 2021 is the ultimate suppressed AR. And it's going to be using a side charging handle system with like a sealed back. Now it's expensive, it's a JP, but I have an idea for what I believe is truly going to be the ultimate suppressed AR. One last thing is you could look at a suppressed optimized bolt carrier group as well. JP makes the heavier mass one. Otherwise, Santan and CMC have theirs, which does help. I tried that out for a while. I should do a review on that. I forgot to do that. But it has different exhaust ports, and that actually helps with suppressed a little bit. And then Bootleg was making a carrier that had a setting for suppressed and unsuppressed, and then I believe it was Rubber City Armory also made an adjustable gas key. So those are some options for you as well. So do some research on those, and maybe we can do a little bit more into that topic into the future. All right, this one is from Thomas. Oh, you asked 2 questions. All right, I live in southern Indiana and very interested in getting into competitive shooting. Yeah, I would reach out to local gun shops and stuff. So his question is, any events where I could utilize one of these for an event, or get into competitive shooting. It doesn't have a shotgun, so 3-gun, but I would say you could start with precision rifle. I mean, obviously your Savage 30-06 is going to kick you a little bit more, so it's going to be a little tougher, but you're going to go out and you're going to have some fun. So search for precision rifle shooting in your area, or reach out to maybe some of the gun shops or stuff like that. There's going to be a gun guy that knows about some Facebook group or some forum or something like that. Scourge the forum, the forums and things, and look for any sort of clubs or whatever. Other one is USPSA. If you have I thought you said you had a pistol. Yeah. So you could look for that. So there's certainly got to be something around to get into it. And just go. Bring whatever gear you have, eyes, ears, gun, mags, holster, all that stuff, and just show up and just shoot it. And you'll get people that'll say, hey man, why don't you try this? Or hey, let me help you out. And it's a good community of shooters. They'll help you. You can try out other people's gear. They're pretty good about that kind of stuff. And you can have a lot of fun and then figure out what you would like to get into. So that's what I would recommend. All right, this next one is from JD. I'm building a Glock magged AR 9PCC to complement her Glock 19 SBR silencer, defensive ammo. I think frangible would be best. What do you recommend? I would recommend a quality. Remember last episode how I found some ammo? Yeah, sure enough I did. I would use a defense load. Frangible Obviously, the advantages with frangible is its idea is that it's not supposed to go through as many layers of barriers like sheetrock and stuff like that. However, for true performance, you're going to want to look at a self-defense optimized load. My favorite is either like Gold Dot or Federal HST. Hornady makes some great stuff as well. Their critical defense line. Those are all super solid performers that have been in numerous officer-involved shootings, numerous self-defense shootings, and have been proven performers. The downside is pistol rounds can go through more layers of sheetrock, siding, plywood paneling, stuff like that. So there is a risk of over-penetration. Now, depending on where you live, if you live in an apartment building or something like that, obviously you have to, calculate those risks. If you live in a house where you have a wooded area or whatever, where you're more rural, again, there's risks. But anytime you're, having to use your firearm in a self-defense situation, there's going to be risks of all sorts of different magnitudes. So I would use a proven round that has been successful in self-defense or type shooting situations versus a frangible, but that's just my advice. But again, look at the pros and cons and see what's realistic for your environment, what's going to be ultimately the safest for you. But look for gelatin tests, see if the ammunition has been tested to FBI protocol. That would be the good performance, looking for proper penetration into ballistic gel through different barriers, things like that. All right, this next one is from Rick. Dude, this is a blast from the past, and here's going to be my dad joke of the episode. His first question is, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? And I don't know if you guys remember, it was a game. We played it in like 4th grade, Mrs. Lee's class, and then it turned into a TV show, and the theme song was like an a cappella group, and they were like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? All right, Bob, I know how much you hate my singing, but I loved that show. I thought it was a great show. So that's the dad joke of the day. Where do I start to become an officer like yourself? Part of it's going to depend on what state you're in. Some states have statewide academies that you can go through. Some states have college requirements. Like in Minnesota, we had a college requirement, and then our academy was actually a part of the college system. And then once you went through all that, you could go apply and look for a job. For you, I would maybe reach out to your local police department, law enforcement agency, and see if they have any volunteer opportunities, internships, reserve officer programs, things like that, to get a feel for what the career is like. Because there's pros and cons of going into this career, man. That could be a whole nother Malibu on my mind with Dave episode. Let me tell you. And also let me tell you, I don't have any Malibu mixed with this, but if you did, it would be pretty awesome. Just saying. But anyways, that could be a whole nother off-topic like rant video, and I don't know if I'll make that video, quite frankly, but I would check out some of those options, and then they can tell you what your state requires for licensing, school requirements, academy requirements, hiring requirements, things like that. All right, we're gonna do one more question and then we'll take our break. This is from Paul, the Grand Poobah himself. Why on earth would anyone consider making oatmeal cookies when chocolate chip cookies are far superior? I have no idea. I do not like chocolate, or excuse me, whoa. That could have got ugly. I don't like oatmeal raisin cookies either. I know some of you out there might, all right? Peanut butter cookies, with some milk or whatever, and I know there's a few viewers out there who are gonna make peanut butter jokes, because overall I don't like peanut butter, and it stems from me not liking peanut butter and jelly sandwiches as a kid. Do I eat peanut butter, Taylor? Yes, sometimes I do, okay? But overall I don't like it as much as you do, and that's all right, we can disagree, all right? Thank you, Taylor. If you make any comments, I'll probably just delete them, just to telling you. And if Miranda did want to make more of those cookies, that'd be fine. Anyways, I don't know, I do like chocolate chip. And around here we have Sweet Martha's Cookie Jar at the State Fair, and you can find some of her frozen cookie dough at grocery stores. That makes a fine cookie because I don't really have a good recipe. So that's pretty awesome. All right, let's take a break and thank our sponsor. It is Lucky Shot. Lucky Shot is an awesome webpage that carries all sorts of cool gifts for the shooter in your life, whether it be for yourself or someone you like. Maybe a bachelor, bachelorette party, brother, sister, mom, dad, kids, niece, nephew, whatever it might be. There's a good chance that Lucky Shot has a gift that is exciting for them. Or yourself, of course. Check out their webpage. Use the coupon code that's shown on the screen to save yourself a little bit of money on your next purchase. And check out all the cool glassware and gifts they have firearms related. Their stuff is really cool. I'm actually using it right now to have my pineapple Fanta in this episode, and I'm enjoying it in a Lucky Shot glass. I do like their stuff. It's always a conversation piece every time I bring it out. People always ask, especially people that aren't necessarily shooters, they ask, is that a real bullet? And yes, it is, but it's done safely. So check out LuckyShotUSA.com. Use the coupon code that we showed on the screen to save yourself a little bit of money, and we thank them for giving away the prize for this month's QA. All right, let's get back to it. This one is from Jesus. What are some things a civilian should carry in a plate carrier, and what plate carrier and plates do you recommend? As far as what we should carry on a plate carrier, I probably will do an episode on this because I just picked up a new plate carrier from Defense Mechanisms, and those guys I've trained with, they're down in Minnesota, and so far I'm impressed with the plate carrier. I do want to get a couple of accessories that I didn't order initially, and as far as plates go, there's a ton of different plates out there. Defender Body Armor makes some. Hardware, there's so many plates that I'm not going to claim to be an expert on what they are, but I would look at buying the highest quality plates you can afford, okay? Generally, the more expensive, the lighter weight, which is going to be more comfortable versus like a steel plate. I am not a huge fan of steel plates just because they're heavier. You could have risk of spall or fragmentation. So I would look at like polypropylene or whatever, some fancy word, for the plates. And then you also want to see if it's a standalone or an in conjunction plate. An in conjunction plate needs to go in front of soft body armor to be effective. A standalone plate can just simply stand on its own and stop the threats that it's rated for. So again, save up as much money as you can if you really think you're going to need a plate carrier. Light is comfortable. Protec, whatever is what we carry at work. I'm looking at a couple other plates for my own training rig. And obviously weight is going to be a driving factor. If you're wearing a plate carrier at a class for 10 hours a day, the lighter weight is going to be helpful. So as far as the plate carrier, there's a ton of good brands. I'm going to be checking out this Defense Mechanisms one more in detail and doing a video on that. I really like it so far. It has good features. It's sleek, it's simple, it's configurable to what you want. Which brings into the other part of your question, what should you carry? I like the modularity of some of the carriers. If I wanted it to be sleek so I could throw a sweatshirt over it, the Defense Mechanisms gives me that. If I wanted it to be a class type with magazines and stuff like that, I can totally do that. It has the dangling fanny pack for a med pouch. It has all those options. So I would look at, if you're looking at carrying stuff, ammunition to supplement this, if you're thinking about this in like the end of the world situation or class rig, communication, a little bit of admin type stuff, and then medical. And those would be kind of core things that you should have on a plate carrier. Supplemental stuff could also include a light or multi-tool, a snack, some lubricant, batteries, trauma shears, stuff like that would all be good. We'll do a separate video on kind of my plate carrier setup once I get things kind of finalized, but that's a great question. And then as far as from a citizen standpoint, sometimes low profile is best. If you just kind of want to keep a low profile, might be worth looking at something that you can throw a hoodie or a jacket over and not grab too much attention to yourself. All right, this one is from Taylor. Got my first can of Silencer Co. Omega. I was wondering how you adapt current setups to best operate with and without need to do the DIY gas buster. We talked about that. So, yeah, that would be as far as like muzzle devices. You could look at the Area 419. They make muzzle devices that are compatible with the Omega. You could get the Dead Air Omega adapter, so you could use Dead Air muzzle devices. But I would say, as far as adapting current setups to best operate with and without, kind of like what we talked about earlier, you could look at the adjustable gas key, the adjustable carrier, or just adding a little bit more mass to kind of figure out, ejection pattern and what kind of feels good. But yeah, do the gas buster charging handle mod that we talked about earlier, and I think you'd be all set. And sometimes you just find that you throw it on, and yeah, it has a little bit more felt gas or the ejection pattern changes, but you can just kind of run with it, and it's not the end of the world. So yeah, good can, man. The Omegas are good quality stuff. Good quality stuff. This one is from Jason. Just saw your video about AR winterization. Seems good common sense. But he's seen some tests where they simulate freezing rain. It just renders ARs inoperable and warm from freezing. What should you do? More thin lube, extra lube, things like that. So here's the deal. Freezing rain sucks. We've done some testing when I was working for another rifle company. This was several years ago now. We did some cold weather testing where we basically would use a squirt bottle and then let it freeze, and we had the same results. And the problem is that the ice would basically mechanically lock the firearm, the different controls. And there's nothing you can really do about that except for either break it by shock, so some sort of banging it around, breaking the ice up, or obviously temperature, melting the ice, turning it into liquid, or breaking it apart if you could. But the reality is it would mechanically lock the firearm, and it's not alone to ARs. When we were doing this, we actually then replicated it with a couple other rifle platforms, and we were able to get those to really choke as well. So freezing rain is something that is legitimate. One of the things that I have talked about let's just say you had to operate in those extreme conditions, I would look at simply covering the fire controls portion up, modifying like a stocking cap of something like that, or even wrapping it with like one of those handkerchief things that are all tactical operator like, just to keep the freezing rain on that garment or that cover, and then if you needed to, you could take it off, or covering the garment, make like an all-weather cover type thing, was about the best solution that I could think of at the time. Now thankfully those situations are few and they are far between, but it is a reality of winter, and it's just a harsh reality that when you get that ice, it's going to lock up, it's going to expand. So there's not a ton you can do about it. Yes, rubbing alcohol could in theory melt that. It could kind of help with that. So it's just kind of a tough shake. So I would say shielding your rifle from those elements is a good defense is the best offense in those type of situations. And if you did find yourself in that, like I said, I was trying to figure out some sort of a way to make like a little quick detach cover, almost like a gun mitten or something like that, where it would kind of, protect the fire controls, and then you could quick rip it off. If you were like a patrol officer on a perimeter, or a tactical team member or military, whatever, and you were on a perimeter and you had this freezing rain, you could just quickly deploy with that. So I don't know. Those are kind of my options. I didn't really ever come up with something because thankfully we don't need to worry about it as much. But that also kind of goes into things too of making sure the dust cover is closed, making sure that your optics are protected, because all that stuff is exposed to the elements as well. Obviously, one of the other tests we did was carrying it squad ready, empty chamber mag loaded versus fully loaded. And what we did find is that most of the time when there was freezing rain or whatever, if you could manipulate the safety, which sometimes was an issue, if you could manipulate the safety and get one round off, the shock would generally cause the gun to at least move enough to either start working, or you could manipulate it to get it to working. But sometimes we couldn't even get the safety to manipulate, kind of like in the videos that you sent, we had very similar results. So that's a great question, great question. All right, this one is from Bob. Bob, sorry about my singing. Thank you again. All right, he's been looking into gun legal services like CCW Safe, USCCA, and while I don't know if you have done any research or have such a policy, I'm interested in your thoughts. Maybe a few pointers for everyone to consider. That's a great question. I personally have a legal defense protection plan through a professional association. They're supposed to cover me off duty. Obviously, I haven't tested it, so I don't know for sure. And I've heard mixed reviews over any type of these services. You'll see like one comment where they say, oh yeah, whatever, but I don't know if that's firsthand experience or not. Do I think it's good to have something? If you're carrying a firearm, I do think you need to have some legal protection, whether that's liability insurance, a law firm or a lawyer or some sort of legal advice. Absolutely, you should look into something. That might be a great future video idea. Maybe I'll reach out to CCW Safe and USCCA and see if they'd give me kind of a little bit of their time to present information to me that I could present to you and allow you to make your own choice. Now, other thing to look into is if you have a liability umbrella or a liability coverage with your homeowner's insurance, it's important to reach out to your agent and ask them, does that cover intentional acts? A lot of insurance companies would consider a self-defense shooting an intentional act. You were intentional in your actions, and some insurance companies might say, no, we don't cover intentional acts. It's only for accidents. It's only for, bad stuff that somebody slips and falls in your driveway, that type of thing. So I would definitely reach out to your homeowner's insurance, because if you think that you're covered with your homeowner's liability or whatever it might be, or a rider umbrella type policy, you might be surprised, and you definitely want to get that in writing from either your agent or your insurance company. These services obviously cater towards the firearms community. I do think they have an interest in wanting to serve you well, because if that bad reputation got out, I don't think they'd be in business very long. So they might hopefully be good, reputable companies. But unfortunately, I don't have any first-hand knowledge or even like second-hand knowledge. I don't know anybody who's had to use those services. So that's a great topic. I'm hopefully going to do some future research and see if we can turn that into another video. We've got a couple more, excuse me. This one's from Josh. Wants to build a general purpose rifle. Trying to decide between 14.5 and 16, 0 to 400 yards, CQB as well to reach out, surefire suppressor. Dude, great question. My rifle setup video that I talked about earlier, that would probably be like if I had to pick one rifle. And that one was a JP 14.5 with a pin muzzle device. Otherwise, I do have a different video. And again, I don't know if I'm running out of cards, but it would be the Sweet 16 project. Very similar pin and weld, don't have to worry about SBR stuff, but if I had to pick one rifle to do it all, it would be very similar, or if not exact, to the rifles that we've already talked about. It has an optic system, a white light, a sling, and I am very comfortable shooting out to 400 yards. In fact, the JP we shot out to, I want to say 500 some yards with an LPVO. LPVO would help. I'm a big fan of LPVOs on all my rifles pretty much because it allows you to see the target better. And I can still do CQB type stuff, no problem with a good quality LPVO, but I would look at something like that absolutely for sure. Check out those videos that we talked about. If they're not up in the cards, they are going to be in the description below, but those are phenomenal rifle setups. In my opinion, if I had to pick like a do-all rifle, they just work really well. I've had a lot of success with them over the years in work, patrol functions, training situations. They work really well. Obviously, a shorter gun is going to be a little bit more comfortable with a suppressor, hence one of the benefits to an SBR. However, you don't need an SBR to be suppressed. Just keep in mind it's going to add a little length, but having a suppressor is certainly nice as well. All right, this last one is a YouTube comment. This is from Medfloat. Looking to change my factory trigger on his Daniel Defense to something two-stage. Was looking at the Geisley or comparable. Geisley makes great two-stage triggers. I really, really like their two-stage triggers. You can also look at their G2S line from Brownells. I can't remember if there's another dealer that sells their G2S, but it's more of a streamlined production version. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles on the inside, but it still feels like an SSA, and they are significantly lower in price. Other popular triggers are the LaRue MBT. I've had a couple. I'm not saying they're bad triggers. I kind of like the Geisley better. I've just felt the feel of the trigger bow was a little bit better, so I actually ended up selling my LaRue's. They're not a bad trigger at all. However, it just didn't do it quite for me. Get Stern, I believe, has a Stern Defense. Get Stern is their webpage. They have a two-stage trigger that felt good at TriggerCon. I have not tried it out in person much. And I'm trying to think if there's other two-stage triggers. I do have a Trigger Tech Diamond two-stage trigger that's on the shelf that I'm going to be putting into something. I don't exactly know what, but that felt good, kind of just trying it out, but that's a little bit more expensive. So bang for the buck, I would say that Geisley G2S is a really, really solid two-stage trigger. Otherwise, the LaRue is a very good two-stage trigger as well. And again, they're priced right. That is going to do it for this episode of the QA. And of course, my iPad just died, but I do have a backup on my telephone because remember, one is none, two is one. So let's pick our winner. Before we do that, again, if you want to see your question get on the show, the best way is to email us. The email is shown below, theqa@gunsandtactics.com. And of course, at the end of the episode, we give away one prize to one lucky question asker. Again, thanks to our sponsor, Lucky Shot, for that. So let's go ahead and generate our random numerator. Generate our random number. And it is number 6, if you guys can see that. Number 6 is JD, reference the PCC ammo. So JD, we're gonna go ahead and reach out to you and get your shipping information and have Lucky Shot send you a prize. Again, guys, Happy New Year. I hope the holidays went good. I know 2020 was a rough year for a lot of people, and regardless of your thoughts on Corona, COVID, you probably know somebody that was affected by it some way, shape, or form, whether it be health, whether it be financial, whether it be their job, whether it be stress. And I do think there's going to be a lot of effects that we still don't know about that are going to come in the future because of it. So obviously it's a crappy, crappy situation. It's hurt a lot of people in a lot of ways. So I really do hope that 2021 is better for everybody. I hope we can all move forward. I know people are divided over politics, people are divided over Corona, people are divided over all sorts of issues. And if I could give everybody just a little bit of advice, is I would just encourage you to try to be kind. You know, be prepared to protect yourself, of course, all that stuff aside, but let's just try to share a little joy to people. I try to share a little joy when I can and try to put a smile on people's face, whether that's helping somebody out, making somebody laugh, whatever it might be. Maybe I'm getting a little too philosophical. Maybe the pineapple Fanta is getting to me, but I just hope all of us have a happy and healthy 2021, and here is truly to you. Thank you guys very much for watching, and have a great day. We work really hard to make content that we hope you as a shooter would enjoy. Subscribe to our channel, check out our featured videos and playlists, and if you have a question firearms related, go ahead and send an email to the address shown on the screen to be entered into our monthly QA series.